One quiet night, Linda woke up suddenly. She heard something strange. It was a soft growl. It came from the nursery. She listened carefully. There it was again. Jack, their golden retriever, was growling. Linda's heart began to race. Jack was always so gentle and loving. He never growled like this. It didn't feel playful. It felt serious. Linda quickly got out of bed. She rushed to Jacob's room. Jack was sitting beside the crib, her body tense and her eyes fixed on the baby. She growled again, a deep sound that didn't stop. "Jack!" Linda whispered. Her voice unsure. Jack didn't move. Her growl deepened, and her eyes stayed on Jacob. Linda gently nudged Jack away from the crib, but Jack didn't want to leave. Linda felt uneasy. What was going on? Why was Jack acting this way? She looked around the room. Everything seemed normal, but Jack's behavior made Linda worried. Jack had always been protective, but this growling was different. It wasn't like her at all. Linda wondered if something was wrong with Jack. Was she sick? Was something wrong with Jacob? She couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right, but she also knew she had to stay calm. "Jack, what is it?" Linda whispered again, feeling a growing fear. The next night, Jack did it again. And the night after that. Every night, Jack sat by Jacob's crib and growled softly. Linda grew more worried. She and Mark tried everything. They took Jack to the vet. They even had a dog trainer come to the house. But no one could explain why Jack was acting so strangely. "I don't understand," Linda said to Mark one evening, feeling tired. "She's fine during the day, but at night, she's like this." Mark rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "What if she's hearing something we can't hear? Maybe she senses something wrong." Linda shook her head. "I've checked everywhere. There's nothing in that room. There's no reason for her to be like this." Still, Jack kept growling. Linda's stomach felt tight with worry. She loved Jack, but what if something was wrong with her? She hated the feeling of not knowing what was happening. One evening, after a long day, Linda sat down in the living room, feeling exhausted. "Maybe we should just keep her outside at night," she suggested. "It's not normal for her to act this way." Mark was hesitant. "I don't want to push her away, but I don't want to risk something happening either." They both sat in silence, both uncertain about what to do next. Jack's growling felt more serious each night. Weeks passed, and Linda's worry only grew. Jack's growling didn't stop. Linda felt like she was losing control of the situation. One night, Linda said to Mark, "Maybe we should think about rehoming Jack. I can't take the risk with Jacob's safety." Mark didn't know what to say. Jack had been part of their family for years, but now, things felt different. Linda and Mark even set up a baby monitor with a camera in Jacob's room. They watched the footage carefully. Jack would enter the nursery, sit beside Jacob's crib, and start growling. But there was nothing. No shadows, no strange sounds. Just Jacob, sleeping peacefully. Jack's growling made no sense. But Linda didn't feel better. What was wrong? One afternoon, Mark suggested, "Maybe we should get another opinion. A psychic, or someone who knows animals better." Linda wasn't sure what to think. She didn't believe in psychics, but she was desperate. "I just want to know what's going on," Linda said at night. Jack's growl echoed in the nursery again. It was louder, more urgent. Linda stood at the door, her heart pounding. She thought about Jack's past behavior. Loving, loyal, playful. This wasn't her dog. Something was wrong. One night, everything changed. Linda woke to frantic barking. Jack's bark was loud and urgent. Linda's heart pounded in her chest as she rushed to Jacob's room. Jack was standing by the crib, barking and growling. "Jack, what's wrong?" Linda asked, panic rising in her voice, but Jack didn't stop. She tugged on Linda's pajamas with her teeth, pulling her towards the crib. Linda looked down at Jacob but wasn't moving. "Jacob?" Linda whispered, her voice trembling with fear. For a moment, there was nothing, no breath, no movement. Linda screamed, but Jack didn't stop. She nudged Jacob with her nose. Suddenly, Jacob gasped. A breath. Then, he cried out loudly. Linda collapsed to the floor, tears flowing from her eyes. He stopped breathing, but Jack saved him. Mark rushed in, wide-eyed. "What happened?" "He wasn't breathing," Linda said, shaking. "Jack saved him." She saved him. Jack stood next to Jacob, her eyes full of love and protection. She had known something was wrong. She had tried to wake them, to get their attention. Linda and Mark knelt beside Jacob, hugging him tightly. The relief they felt was overwhelming. "Thank you, Jack," Linda whispered. "You saved him." The next morning, Linda and Mark took Jacob to the doctor. They learned that Jacob had sleep apnea, a condition where he stopped breathing while sleeping. It was something they never could have known without Jack's help. Jack had sensed it. Every night, she had been trying to wake Jacob. She had been trying to protect him, even when they didn't know. Linda hugged Jack tightly. I almost gave you away, girl. I'm so sorry. Jack wagged her tail, as if saying, no need to apologize, Mom. I'm here to help. From that moment on, Jack became Jacob's official medical alert dog. She was trained to alert Linda and Mark when Jacob's breathing stopped during the night. The growling stopped, but Jack's love and protection stayed. She had saved Jacob's life. Linda and Mark felt like they owed Jack everything. She had given them back their peace of mind. Every night, they knew Jack would be there, watching over Jacob, making sure he was safe. I never imagined a dog could save a life like this, Mark said, shaking his head. Linda smiled. She's not just a dog. She's a hero. A few weeks later, Linda and Mark were laughing together. Jack's a hero, Linda said, smiling. She saved Jacob's life. Mark nodded. But imagine if she could talk. She'd never let us live that down. Linda laughed. If Jack could talk, she'd probably remind us every single day. Just then, Jack plopped down on the floor and gave them a look. As if she was listening, Linda laughed again. She knows we're talking about her. Mark smiled. She's definitely the boss around here. Jack wagged her tail, agreeing with him. She was the one in charge, and she knew it did. Linda's laughter echoed through the house. For the first time in weeks, she felt at ease. Jack had turned their world upside down, but in the best way. She had saved their son's life, and now, she was the hero of the family. I think we should take her for a special treat, Linda said. After all, she's earned it. Mark agreed. We'll make it a doggy day out. Jack was no longer just a dog. She was a hero. She had saved Jacob's life, and now she had an important job. Linda and Mark trained her even more, but Jack didn't need much training. She already knew what to do. Every night, Jack curled up beside Jacob's crib, watching over him. She never let anything happen to him. One evening, Linda whispered to Mark. She was meant to be his dog. Mark nodded, and he was meant to be her boy. Life felt safer with Jack around. She had shown them the power of love and protection. Jack had saved their son, and now she stayed by his side every night. The family knew that Jack's love wasn't just a pet's love. It was a fierce, unbreakable bond that had saved a life and created a family of trust. They cherished Jack even more with each passing day. Jack, you're a part of this family forever, Linda said one evening. Hugging her tightly, Jack's tail wagged happily, as if to say, I know. With Jack watching over Jacob, Linda and Mark began to sleep more easily. Their family felt complete, but one night, Jack suddenly started barking again in the nursery. Linda rushed upstairs, worried. Jacob? Jack. But Jacob was fine, sleeping peacefully. Linda looked around and noticed the baby monitor's light flashing. The battery's low, she realized. Jack stood there, looking proud. Linda turned to Mark. Jack barked because the battery in the monitor was dying. Mark chuckled. She's really on top of things. Linda smiled. She's even keeping track of the baby monitor now. Jack wagged her tail, looking pleased with herself. It was as though she was saying, I got this. Linda and Mark laughed, relieved that Jack had yet again proven her worth. She wasn't just a dog. She was their protector, their alert system, their family member. Every night, Jack curled up beside Jacob's crib, keeping a watchful eye on him. It was their new normal, and it felt right. As weeks passed, the bond between Jacob and Jack grew even stronger. Jacob, now a toddler, loved Jack more than anything. Every time he woke up, Jack was right there, waiting by the crib, tail wagging. Jacob would giggle and stretch his small arms towards her. Jack would lick his face, and they would play together, filling the house with laughter. Linda and Mark often watched from the door, amazed at how much Jacob loved Jack, and how Jack seemed to understand him so well. One evening, as Linda tucked Jacob into bed, she looked at Jack, who was lying beside the crib. You've really become part of our family, haven't you? She said softly. Jack's ears perked up, and she looked at Linda as if to say, I'm always here for him. The little family had found something even more precious than they could have imagined, a deep, unspoken connection between Jacob and Jack. It wasn't just about safety anymore. It was about love and trust that could not be broken. Linda smiled to herself, knowing that Jack was more than just a dog. She was Jacob's protector, friend, and constant companion. And with every passing day, Their bond became stronger. One evening, as the family sat down to dinner, there was a sudden knock on the door. Linda's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone. Mark got up to answer it, and as he opened the door, he was greeted by a man dressed in dark clothes. He looked serious, but there was something odd about him. "I'm looking for Jack," the man said. Linda's heart tightened. "Jack? What do you mean?" The man explained that he was a former trainer who had worked with Jack when she was younger. He had been following her progress and had heard about her special abilities. "We trained Jack to be an alert dog, but I never imagined she would do something like this," the man said, his voice full of admiration. "She's been helping Jacob, hasn't she?" Linda nodded, feeling a bit protective. "Yes, she's our family's hero." The man smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "I just wanted to see her again. I didn't think she'd end up with such a special family." Jack, hearing her name, ran to the door and stood beside Linda, her tail wagging. The man bent down, looking at Jack with a sense of pride. "Jack was meant for something big," the man said softly. "She's more than just a pet. She's a true hero." Linda and Mark exchanged glances. They both knew that Jack's place was with them, and nothing could change that. One morning, Linda woke up with a heavy heart. Jacob had been sick for a few days with a fever, and she was feeling exhausted. The weather had been chilly, and she knew that Jacob's health was delicate. Jack stayed close to Jacob, always by his side, watching over him. Linda had noticed that Jack seemed even more protective lately, staying extra close to Jacob, sensing something was off. She didn't want to overreact, but something about the way Jack was behaving made her nervous. That night, as Linda tucked Jacob into bed, Jack stood near the crib, her eyes locked on Jacob. "Jack, what's wrong?" Linda whispered, unsure of what the dog was trying to tell her. Suddenly, Jack let out a low growl and nudged Jacob gently with her nose. Jacob stirred in his sleep, his breath coming out in shallow gasps. Linda's heart raced. "Mark, come here." Mark rushed into the room, and they both quickly lifted Jacob out of the crib. They could see that Jacob was struggling to breathe, his little chest rising and falling in quick bursts. "We need to take him to the hospital," Mark said, his voice shaky. Jack barked loudly, as if to confirm the urgency. They quickly rushed Jacob to the car, Jack following them every step of the way. The whole drive was filled with tense silence, the only sound coming from the soft whimper of Jack, who sat in the back with Jacob. At the hospital, doctors confirmed that Jacob's fever had worsened and that he was suffering from a respiratory infection. It was a frightening moment for Linda and Mark, but they knew that Jack had once again sensed the danger before they did. "Thank you, Jack," Linda whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "You saved him again." As Jacob recovered from his illness, Linda and Mark became even more aware of Jack's incredible instincts. It seemed like Jack could sense things before anyone else. She was always by Jacob's side, never letting him out of her sight. Jack's devotion to Jacob was beyond anything Linda had ever seen. Jack wasn't just a pet. She was a protector, a friend, and a loyal companion. One afternoon, as they all sat in the living room, Linda watched as Jack nudged Jacob, who was sitting on the floor with a toy. Jack gently pushed the toy closer to him, as if trying to engage him in play. "Look at that," Linda said softly. "She's teaching him how to play." Mark smiled. "She's more than just a dog. She's a teacher too." Jack wagged her tail, as if she understood everything they said. She had become a part of their lives in ways they never expected. Linda felt an overwhelming sense of love for both Jacob and Jack. Their bond had grown so strong that it was hard to imagine life without them. They had created a new family dynamic, one filled with love, trust, and a shared sense of protection. "It's amazing," Linda said, watching Jack and Jacob. "She was always meant to be with us." Mark agreed. "And she'll always be here, keeping us safe." Linda smiled, knowing that Jack would continue to protect Jacob for as long as she could. The little family was complete, and they were stronger than ever. Years passed, and Jacob grew older. He became more independent, but Jack was always by his side. The bond between them only grew stronger as time went on. Jack had watched Jacob grow from a baby into a young child, and every step of the way, she had been there, looking out for him. One day, as Jacob was playing in the yard, he looked up at Jack and said, "You're my best friend, Jack. I don't know what I'd do without you." Linda watched from the window, her heart swelling with pride. She had always known that Jack was special, but seeing the love and devotion between Jack and Jacob filled her with gratitude. Mark walked up behind her and smiled. She's really something, isn't she? Linda nodded. She's our family's hero, and she always will be. Jack's legacy was one of love, loyalty, and protection. She had saved Jacob's life more than once, but she had also shown the family the true meaning of devotion. Jack had taught them that the love between a pet and a human was one of the strongest bonds in the world. No matter how old Jacob got, Jack would always be by his side, watching over him, keeping him safe. As Linda and Mark looked at their son and their dog, they knew that their family was stronger than ever. Jack had given them more than they could ever repay, and for that, they would be forever grateful. As Jack grew older, Linda and Mark noticed that her energy wasn't the same as it once was. Her steps were slower, and her fur wasn't as shiny as it used to be. But through it all, Jack remained a constant presence in their lives, always with Jacob, always protecting him. One evening, after a long day, Linda sat beside Jack, gently stroking her fur. "You've done more for us than we can ever thank you for," she said softly. Mark joined them, resting his hand on Jack's back. "You've been a part of this family since the beginning, Jack, and you always will be." Jack's tail wagged weakly, as if to say, "I'm still here." The family knew that the time was coming when they would have to say goodbye to their beloved hero. But they also knew that Jack's legacy would live on in the love and protection she had given them. One afternoon, Jack laid down beside Jacob, her eyes peaceful and content. Jacob hugged her, whispering, "I love you, Jack." Linda and Mark stood nearby, watching, their hearts full. Jack had given them everything, and now it was time to let her rest. At this moment, they understood that some heroes wear capes, but others wear fur and walk on four legs. Jack had been their hero, and always would be. If you found value in this story, please like, share, comment, and follow for more. Stay blessed.